Hi, my name is Zach Carr. That's a picture of me. I have 5 years experience in horticultural sales. Previously, I was a commercial plant grower for 2 years, and I graduated from the University of Connecticut with a degree in horticulture. Welcome to the webinar again, and this slide shows a list of topics that we'll be covering today. We'll be talking a little bit about our company, controlled environment agriculture, greenhouse growing, lighting, heating, circulation. There's no real need to take notes in this slide. We'll touch on all these topics a little bit further into the presentation. A little bit more about our company. We're a leading manufacturer of greenhouses, high tunnels, ag buildings, and growing supplies. And as Carrie mentioned, we offer over 30,000 collective products. We've been in business since 1979, and we are 100% and operated in the United States. Controlled environment agriculture. That's what I'm here to talk to you about controlled environment agriculture today and how that applies to plant health. Plant health is extremely important to the commercial grower and the hobbyist. The hobbyist wants their plants to look nice. The commercial plant grower wants to make a lot of money. Plant health can be optimized with controlled environment agriculture, otherwise referred to as CEA. Controlled environment agriculture definition is any technology that enables the grower to manipulate a crop's environment to the desired conditions. Horticultural practices can be optimized. What does that mean? With very little effort, we can keep plants happy and healthy. Put in less and we get more. CEA technologies include greenhouses, hydroponics, aquaculture, and aquaponics. This slide tells you a little bit about greenhouse growing. I'll elaborate. Obviously, greenhouses allow for year-round production, 365 days of the year, because we have complete control in the environment. Provides total environmental control, and inside the greenhouse, you have the ability to both heat and cool. As we all know, plant health is dependent on temperature. Simple thermostats inside the greenhouse with heaters and fans and other methods for cooling can help you change your growing environment to make the plants healthier. Plants grow on benches, in raised bed kits in the ground, or hydroponically. Basically, growing in a greenhouse can be multifaceted. Whatever is best for the plant, we can do. So we have several kinds of greenhouses, and for the purpose of this presentation, we broke that into engineered greenhouses and standard greenhouses. Engineered greenhouses come available with triple galvanized USA-made steel. All of our framework is made out of triple galvanized USA-made steel, triple engineered or standard. The glazing materials are either double layer film or polycarbonate. The double layer film typically comes with a 4-year warranty, and it comes with an inflation fan. Oh, I apologize. It comes with an inflation fan to keep the 2 layers inflated. The polycarbonate comes with a 10-year warranty against loss of light transmission, yellowing, condensation, and even breakage due to hail. For customers in more extreme environments, sometimes that's sought after. Engineered greenhouses are especially needed when building permits are required. Engineered greenhouses will withstand any snow or wind load in the USA. FarmTech employs several professional engineers and many designers, and we keep the whole process in-house. We're able to provide stamped drawings showing specific wind and snow loads to permit. Basically, that's what your building official wants to see in order to give you a permit. And then standard greenhouses, there's a lot of them in our catalogs. They're not engineered to any environmental extreme. They are, again, available with the triple galvanized USA-made steel, polycarbonate, and double film. And we offer stock models out of the catalog with prices very easy to shop around for. Standard greenhouses, just like engineered greenhouses, can be used for CEA, controlled environment agriculture. We can heat and cool both of these structures. Greenhouse growing, hydroponics 101. Part of plant health is not only maintaining the environment around the plant, but also directly affecting the plant with nutrients and soil temperatures. Hydroponics is a method of growing plants in water without soil using mineral nutrient solutions. With the mineral nutrient solution, we're able to gain, or we do gain, precise control over the fertilizer, the food that we provide plants with. We're also able to control root temperature. In addition to air temp, root temp is very important for plant health. With the hydroponic system, we can vary the root temperature by simply varying the temperature of the water that we're circulating over the root. It's increasing in popularity among commercial and hobby growers. We have a lot of restaurant owners setting up hydroponic systems, a lot of grocery stores setting up hydroponic systems, all to become more self-sustainable and local. It's a cost-effective method to grow high-quality produce, maximum yields year-round. Again, just like CEA, little effort is required to keep plants healthy and thriving. So with all of these principles and applications, and with the correct equipment, your job as a plant care or plant steward becomes very easy. Benefits to hydroponic growing. Obviously, plant health, we talked about that already. But plant health directly affects a lot of other things. It increases the quality of your crops. Your crops become larger because you have more precise control over nutrients, because you're keeping the temperature in the correct range, because you're providing the correct humidity to the plants. CEA and hydroponics, you can do all of this. No herbicides necessary in a lot of greenhouses, and especially in hydroponic systems, it's very easy to eliminate weeds entirely and not have to spray herbicides. The third bullet point, up to 90% less water is required compared to traditional soil growing methods. This is super important for areas of the country that maybe water isn't accessible, drought-affected areas of the country. When we look worldwide, this is important for land that's not arable. We can bring water to places and grow hydroponically and do things that maybe previously that wasn't feasible. We can extend the growing seasons with greenhouses, high yields, and minimal growing space. That's actually unique. That's actually something interesting to talk about. With hydroponics, we don't need the traditional row anymore. Typically, we have a way of harvesting plants that does not require rows, and we can fit a lot more plants in the area. Much lower labor costs for growing and harvesting. Growing hydroponically, growing using CEA principles. Told you before that put less in and you get more. Things become easier. Hydroponic growers typically experience time off. Previously, that was unheard of if you were a grower. Once you finish your chores, there's very little to do. Second to last bullet point, can be used in areas where soil-based cultivation isn't possible. That goes back to the water conservation aspect of hydroponic growing. If, let's say, your soil is contaminated with fertilizers or pesticides from a previous tenant, you can grow on top of the soil in raised beds or in hydroponic channels. And last but not least, no soil-borne. Definitely a major blight to a lot of conventional farm practices. We have a few popular hydroponic systems here. The drip system uses Dutch buckets, also called Beto buckets. The plant's roots are suspended in a medium that's typically perlite, hydroton clay pebbles, or expanded shale. The nutrient solution is dripped into the medium near the plant's base. At FarmTech and Grower Supply, we recommend 2 drippers per bucket. 1 dripper doesn't quite cut it. With 2, you get even irrigation over the top of the bucket. A few advantages to the Dutch bucket drip system compared to traditional potted methods. Increased water efficiency and proper root aeration. With correct media like perlite, root aeration is optimized. With the drip system, we can optimize water efficiency by wasting very little and applying the correct nutrients to the plant. my opinion, it's not bullet pointed here. But the number one reason to choose a Dutch bucket is because it has a nutrient reservoir at the bottom of the bucket that constantly contains about an inch of water that's held down there. If the pump fails, if your system's manual, if you forget to irrigate after a couple hours, there's that reservoir kind of backup at the bottom of the bucket that the plant can draw on. Uh, Dutch buckets are perfect for growing trellis crops and vine varieties like cherry tomato, indeterminate vines, cucumbers, squashes, peppers even, trellis up to the top of the greenhouse there. NFT. NFT, we see a lot of pictures of the system. It's the nutrient film technique in which the roots are suspended in the channel and a shallow stream of nutrient solution runs along the base of the channel. With this system, it's very easy to control root temperature by varying the water temperature. The plants are continuously refreshed with new nutrients and fresh water as the solution is recirculated constantly, never stops. Thick root mass develops inside the channel, and it's kept moist by that nutrient film. Water and nutrient waste is also minimal, as previously discussed with hydroponic systems. Because we're recirculating water, recapturing it in a reservoir, we tend to use very little water. So aquaponics, that's what's on everyone's mind. Anyone who start a business, anyone looking to do new things, combine hydroponics with fish. And in a sustainable food production system that, I apologize, aquaponics is a sustainable food production system that combines conventional aquaculture with hydroponics in a symbiotic environment. We use the fish to fertilize the plants, and the plants in turn filter the water for the fish. Effluents accumulate in the water, increasing toxicity for the fish. At that point, the water is led to the hydroponic system, where those byproducts are broken down by the nitrogen-fixing bacteria in the plant's root system. How it works, the aquaponic cycle, we have fish, fish produce waste, the microbes and worms break down that waste and create fertilizer for the plants that filter the water back to the fish. And in Iowa currently we are raising a crop or a batch of tilapia fish. Tilapia are known to withstand just about anything, considered the bulldog of fish, and they are extremely easy to raise. They grow to maturity very quickly. In an aquaponic system, you do have to feed the fish, and with tilapia, if you put a pound of feed in your tank, you get about a pound of gain. They're almost 100% efficient. It truly is amazing. The fact that they're making nitrogen and fertilizer for the plants makes it even better. Why use aquaponics? You can be organic. There's very little input. So we have taken CEA, we've taken hydroponics, all of which reduce inputs, and added fish to the equation to reduce them even. It's highly sustainable and going to hopefully reduce the burden on market fish. Raised beds, um, if hydroponics maybe is something you want to work up to in the future, you could always start with a raised bed. The plant root system has access to plenty of oxygen in a raised bed because soil is separate from what's below ground, easily tilled and fluffed up and aerated. The space between the plants is reduced, allowing more efficient use of the planting area. Soil conditions are controlled more efficiently. Uh, it's easier to heat a raised bed, it's easier to cool a raised bed, it's easier to till them, to control pathogens and pests, better root growth and drainage. The water obviously doesn't want to stay in the raised bed, it wants to drain to the subsoil. You can bring the garden closer to you with a raised bed. We sell things like rolling work seats and garden knee to reduce muscle strain for those gardeners who are hobbyists. A raised bed only helps that out further. And growing in a raised bed, even without a greenhouse, believe it or not, allows you to extend your growing season. does heat up faster in the springtime and stays heated up longer into the fall. Lighting is very important for plant health. Providing adequate light is essential for seedling development. Right off the get-go, when we're starting our transplants, we need to make sure we have adequate lighting. Otherwise, you end up with, and we've all experienced this, leggy seedlings, seedlings that are yellow, seedlings that are unhealthy. At FarmTech and Grower Supply, we carry 4 different types of grow lights. The full spectrum fluorescent light. It's used as a primary light source or a supplemental light source. It's the closest to the natural sunlight. We have bulbs with color rendering index of 93, and the color rendering index scale is it's basically a scale from 0 to 100 that measures how close you are to the mimicking sunlight, and a 93, very, very high value. Metal halides are also used as a primary light source. We really only use metal halides when there's no natural light available to the plants, so indoor growing. It promotes vigorous leafy growth, good for vegetative growing. High pressure sodium is in the same family as a metal halide. It's an HID, or a high intensity charge light. It's best used as a supplementary light source in the greenhouse in conjunction with natural light. It promotes budding and flowering plants. And last but not least, the LED grow lights. New to the lineup here at FarmTech and Grower Supply. We've been selling an abnormal amount of these light fixtures because of how little they cost to operate. Heating. Heating is very important to plants. We need to keep certain temperatures in the wintertime, and we need to do that fairly accurately because we want to underdo things and jeopardize plant health. We don't want to overdo things and cost you an arm and a leg in propane or natural gas bills. A Modine hot dog heater is featured in, actually the hot dog's not featured in any of these pictures. There's the Affinity 93, our most efficient forced hot air heater that's available in propane or natural gas. There are the high efficiency 80% Modines featured on the top left, and we also show a few other options in the bottom left. Backyard and hobby greenhouses use smaller units. We do carry them in propane, natural gas, 220 volt electric, and 110. Fans and vents. This is something that a person who's new to growing wouldn't necessarily think about. We know that we have to keep a certain temperature for plants to grow and be healthy, so we need to provide them with light. What we don't think about is a plant's need for ventilation, for air exchange, for movement of air. And inside a greenhouse or house or sunroom or patio or what have you, there is a chance that you have no air movement, in which case you would benefit from a circulation fan featured on the top right. The right middle picture shows a vent tube going down the length of the greenhouse at the top center. And that vent tube has air being forced into it by a fan, and there's holes pre-punched along the length of the vent tube to distribute the fresh air evenly along the length of the greenhouse. During the summertime, we can use fans to cool the greenhouse with vents at the opposite end. A greenhouse is a big solar collector. It's going to heat up unless properly ventilated, and that's what I know how to do. That's what we know how to do here at FarmTech. We know how to make sure your plants will be healthy by recommending the proper equipment. Evaporative cooling is a step up from normal mechanical ventilation. Mechanical ventilation was what we just discussed, fans and vents. Instead of the vent, we have a cool pad at the opposite end from the fans. Essentially, this is a vent. Air is pulled through this pad, and you can see the pad right there. It's made from a virgin craft paper. It's corrugated, and it's 6 inches thick. We manufacture these at FarmTech and Grower Supply. Water is pumped from a sump that's completely self-contained. Typically, it's automatically filled by a Hudson valve or a float valve. The water is pumped from this self-contained sump through PVC pipe, and the water is distributed or splashed over the top of this pad very evenly along the length. It then drains down the pad, wetting the whole paper 6-inch thick material. There's a drain trough at the bottom that you see there, made of PVC pipe that brings the water back to the sump pump. Um, as the air is pulled through the pad, something occurs. It's called evaporative cooling. The air temperature is reduced by adding humidity. It requires less energy, believe it or not, than refrigeration or air conditioning, which is why it's really, really, really important for greenhouse growers, because there is no way that you could afford to house with air conditioning unless the crop you were growing made an insane amount of money. In addition to cooling, evaporative cooling also relieves plant stress by conditioning the air with moisture. Dry air can be detrimental to plant health depending on what you're growing. By moisturizing the air, this really helps the plants. It reduces the amount of water needed. By moisturizing the air, less air is wicked away from the plant as the air moves over it, reducing the amount of irrigation. It reduces the amount of shade material used, because you no longer need to use shade material to cool the greenhouse. That means more light and more production. From a plant health standpoint, evaporative cooling is probably one of the most important things. Shade cloth. If evaporative cooling is not enough, if you're in such a humid area that evaporative cooling isn't quite feasible, shade cloth is a really great addition to the greenhouse. This lightweight material provides plants and people protection from the sun. It's used for two reasons: reducing temperature and light intensity. Tropical plants, for instance, are fine with the higher temperatures, but like more of an ambient, less intense light. It's perfect for humid areas as it's rot and mildew resistant. We sell in several varieties. There's black knitted, as featured in the top left. It looks extremely nice, and it comes at a great value, and it lasts forever. Doesn't go anywhere. And it's ripstop. Any cuts or tears will not continue. The more expensive option, although I think completely justified option because of the amount of cooling you attain, is the reflective materials that we now sell, featured on the right there. Sensiphones. So a little bit about plant health. If you're away from your greenhouse and during the wintertime and your heater fails, um, all of your plants are probably going to die, or vice versa in the summertime if your ventilation equipment fails. So how else do you know? You need a sensiphone, an alarm system that auto dials up to 4 telephone numbers. We can even provide sensiphones now that text and email. There's a number of different inputs to the sensiphone: temperature alerts, power out alerts, which are really important, humidity alerts. You can call your sensiphone from any cell phone or home phone and receive up-to-date statistics on your greenhouse, temperature, humidity, etc. A very valuable tool in regards to plant health. Growing method, drip irrigation. It means basically the watering of crops by artificial means to foster plant growth. And we typically use tape drippers to do this. We localize the watering process. Um, we're all about watering efficiency here, if you haven't learned that already. By using a drip stake or drip tape, the water is delivered right to the plant roots. We utilize a series of tubing, connectors, and emitters. The systems can be wired to a timer to automate the irrigation, and nutrients can be added to the water and flown through the drip system as well. Some of the nutrients we carry, I've had a lot of success personally with the commercial nutrient system, ENS 17. They are specially formulated, customized to growth, flowering, and ripening processes. They're organic-based, natural, and sustainable. The Huvega product there, you'll notice the organic specialized commercial hydroponic nutrients. The CNS17 is a liquid formulation that's intended to be used with hydroponics and can also be added to uh, the drip irrigation as well. Uh, in addition to being obsessed with water conservation and ways to save you money and ways to provide solutions, um, we are also looking towards the future and self-sustainability. I mentioned before that hydroponics can be basically put anywhere because we use so little water, and we can get away from the soil so that previously unarable land can be still grown upon. The environmental footprint is very, very tiny with controlled environment agriculture. The whole principle is that we put in less and get more. Um, Everyone wants to get more, and everyone wants to put in less because it saves you money, but it also creates a more sustainable food production system. Why choose us? We're a reliable American company. We offer over 30,000 products. We like to call us the one-stop shop. And we have a host of national account managers to serve as guides. If you call, I guarantee you won't wait for long to get one of us on the phone. Extremely helpful to talk to you. Irrigation, hydroponics, high tunnels, greenhouses, whatever your needs may be. In addition to being extremely helpful and proactive, we offer very flexible finance terms. There's a few examples here. We have a 6-month term where we call it the same as cash term. You make no down payment, no payment until your 6-month marker after ship, where you pay us in full at 0% interest, same as cash. We have interest-free financing available also, from 1, 2, even 3-year options. And we do commercial leases for larger orders over $10,000. So that's my plant health presentation. There's a lot to learn, and if you have any questions for me whatsoever, there's going to be a question and answer session as soon as I'm off the phone. You'll have the time to enter any into the question and answer dialog box there. Okay, thank you all for your questions. The first question here is regarding raised beds. What size raised bed would you recommend for a beginner vegetable garden? I would recommend a 3-tier kit, but size would be dependent on what you're comfortable with. We can make them any size, but it depends on what you feel comfortable with and have space for. The higher the raised bed kit, the more control you'll have over the plant's root zone, and the easier it will be to harvest, I'd imagine, because you'd be closer to the plants. The next question is about lighting. Is it cost effective to buy the higher priced efficient lights? That's a good question. It ultimately depends on your electric cost, and in most cases, the LEDs do pay themselves back within 5 years. And any good business model pays itself back within 5 years. And coupled with a 5-year warranty on the LED lights, I think as long as you can afford them on the upfront, they make 100% sense. And we do offer 0% interest financing on the lights. A lot of times, your monthly payment with our 0% program on the lights is outweighed by your sheer savings in electricity. So yes, in a lot of cases, it is cost effective to buy the higher priced efficient lights. Fans and vents. This is a good question. How much maintenance is required on exhaust fans? That's going to depend on the fan type. Belt-driven fans require a little more maintenance, as the belts should be checked periodically versus the direct fans, which do not have belts. Direct drive fans, which do not have belts. The benefit to a belt-driven fan is the longevity of the motor. They tend to last longer when properly maintained, and they also tend to push more air, more cubic feet per minute. You get more bang for your buck. The direct drive fan motor typically lasts longer because of how it's kicked into gear. There's a lot of stress in the motor, whereas the belt serves as a buffer between motor and fan blades. Uh, Evaporative cooling, are these systems effective in high humidity areas? I'm glad you asked that question because I only had time to touch on it briefly in the presentation. The systems work by moisturizing the air and cooling through the evaporation of that moisture. If the humidity is very high, these systems are not going to be very effective because the air is already saturated with moisture. So we have no evaporative cooling potential, essentially. 80% humidity is typically the cutoff point. There's a lot of ways to figure out how humid you are. I'm from Connecticut, and if somebody asked me how humid it was during the summer, I would say super humid because that's all I think about. I complain, you know. And if you actually check the weather data for your town, you'll be surprised to find that during the afternoon, humidities drop pretty significantly. So if you think that you're really humid, check again because during the afternoon is when you're going to be doing most of your cooling. That's when your greenhouse is going to be the hottest. And if the humidity on average is around 50 to 60, even 70%, an evaporative cooler will probably pay itself off um, in productivity because your plants are that much healthier. Another question about shade cloth. If our goal is heat reduction in our greenhouse for tomatoes, what percentage would you recommend? Realistically, it depends on where you are, but we'll kind of go with an average. Tomatoes need a lot of light for fruit and development. They're a high light requirement crop. We recommend no more than a 50% shade cloth because then you would be jeopardizing that fruit development. Any percentage above that will also reduce photosynthesis and essentially your plant will look unhealthy. Do you have motorized retractable shade options? Yes, we do. We offer motorized shade panels. They can be set to either basic controls or with an iGrow controller. I didn't really talk too much about the iGrow. The iGrow controller is a new age smart controller that can actually proportion automatic shade systems and tell them to open and close not only in regards to temperature or light, but also light intensity. That's about it. I don't see any more questions rolling through. So what's next for you? If you have more questions for me, if you want to learn about the products that we sell and how they can benefit you, feel free to contact me or anyone else here at FarmTech. Again, my name is Zach Carr. My telephone number is 1-800-476-9715, and my extension is 170. My email is pretty easy to remember, and the fax number is there as well.